Welcome to the Health Stuff You Need to Know podcast. Information you need to thrive in our toxic modern world. I'm your host, Scott W. Kirkland. I hope you're ready because it is go time with the Wellness Web. Yeah. Alrighty, friends, welcome to another episode. Before we get started, I'd like to give a shout out to Hugh Rod 93, who left a 5-star review on iTunes. Hugh said, tons of great info, great guests, love the digest episode. So thank you so much, Hugh. Really appreciate it. Really helps me out. And if you're listening to this podcast and you like it, please take the time to go to iTunes and leave that review. And I do read out 5-star reviews. So if you want a shout out from me, by all means, leave a review and you're going to get one. Okay, with no further ado, let's get on with today's interview. Lisa Kilgour is my guest today, and she is a registered holistic nutritionist, founder of lisakilgour.com, and faculty member at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. After years of being frustrated with her own health issues, Lisa decided to take matters into her own hands. Refusing to accept a one-size-fits-all approach to health, she carved her own path and began looking at her health like a puzzle, searching for the missing pieces that were preventing her from healing. It's the same approach Lisa takes with her clients today. While many nutritionists focus on just food, Lisa sees it as just one of those puzzle pieces. She truly believes how we care for ourselves, our emotions, our gut flora, sleep, stress, and of course the food we put into our bodies all work together in helping us to heal. Her mission is to help you find those missing pieces and give you the skills you need to solve the puzzle once and for all. Lisa truly embodies the word holistic. Her unique approach to health and wellness has made her a much sought-after speaker, educator, and writer. In 2015, Lisa spoke about the gut-brain connection at TEDx Kelowna and has previously been voted BC's favorite nutritionist by Natural Care Canada. Lisa currently lives in the breathtaking Okanagan, surrounded by good food and stunning scenery. All right, well, welcome to the show, Lisa. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
My pleasure. I know you have a wealth of information to share, so I'm so glad you came on.
I love doing stuff like this. This is great.
Awesome. So I like to start off by asking my guest about if they had a health challenge that they went through and what they did to manage it. What did they learn from that?
Well, I think that most practitioners have had their own struggles, which brings them to where they are. And if I had been told when I was 14, at some point you're going to be a nutritionist, I would have laughed really hard because my diet as a teenager and in my early 20s was a disaster. I ate only sugary foods, processed foods, Skippy peanut butter and Fruit Loops was pretty much all I ate. So when I came into my early 20s, I was in university and I was in an incredibly challenging performance music program. And in that time, I also developed a lot of physical symptoms. I had nerve damage down both my arms, tendonitis in both my thumbs, and asthma, which wasn't serious. It was a mild form of asthma, but dramatically reduced my ability to play. I play the flute. You need a lot of air. And in my time in university, I went from doctor to doctor. I had this lovely GP who humored me, but couldn't see that there was anything wrong with me and would give me whatever test I needed, but nothing was really showing that there was a problem, but I felt so unwell. I was so foggy. I'd forget what day of the week it was. I was exhausted. I was dizzy all the time, as well as I was in chronic pain. I went to asthma specialists and who just said there's nothing wrong with me because I have a big lung capacity. I went to allergists who didn't really find anything wrong other than a ragweed allergy. And whenever I uncovered something like I realized I had asthma attacks whenever I had dairy, these practitioners just said, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't exist. So I was really, really getting frustrated and I didn't know where to turn. And now looking back on it, I can't believe that no one ever asked me what I ate. And a vegetable might have come into my diet once a month at that point, maybe once a month. When I left university out of sheer desperation, I was exhausted and so stressed out. I ended up getting a job, luckily, with a supplement company in the alternative health world. And suddenly I was in my place. I mentioned to one woman I worked with that I think I have a dairy issue. And she's like, oh, so many people have that. And it was the first time anybody had said that what I felt was legitimate. And with just a couple changes, I was feeling better. My brain turned back on. And with a few supplements and dietary changes, my asthma became much more controllable. My pain went away, and I was able to really think clearly. And that is the direct line to where I became a holistic nutritionist, because I loved helping other people find the same direction that I found, and to just legitimize these odd, interesting conditions that there isn't necessarily testing for. When people just feel a general sense of unwell, that is what I really love helping. Today, I eat well, but I also don't have any pain. I don't even think about asthma anymore, and I play in the local symphony, and I can do that because I now have control over all of these symptoms. These symptoms don't even come up anymore that were just dogging my every day in the past.
Fantastic. I'm curious I don't think that many people know what a nutritionist does. I think most people are familiar with going to a doctor and getting a prescription and then going to the pharmacy. But if they were to work with a nutritionist, what could they expect?
Well, I'm a different sort of nutritionist. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. And in holistic nutrition, we see each person as their own person. So you may come with conditions, like say somebody comes to see me with asthma. I'm not treating asthma or working with food to help reduce their asthma symptoms if that's possible. Instead, I'm working with them. And this happens to be a symptom that's a part of their body. And so my approach is very individual. I spend at least a half an hour to 45 minutes getting a full history. What's going on? What symptoms are you feeling? What is your history? And then together we put together a plan. And what I found is small little changes, usually just a few dietary changes at first, can make a huge difference. So what we look for, myself and my client, is what would that first step be? What is the second step? How do we find momentum? And it's a really, really fun job. I don't ascribe by any one diet. I don't ascribe by any one method. It is when somebody comes to see me and they sit in front of me, it is this new journey that we're both on, and it's really fun.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to ask you, in light of the fact that we're all living in a rapidly changing and toxic modern world, what do you think is the number one health concern you think people need to know about today?
What I am seeing the most, and is something that I've dealt with myself, is this overstimulation that we have with our phones and our computers and life in general. There isn't a lot of calmness to life right now. I'm an adrenaline junkie as well, so I love it. I love that feeling of constant adrenaline hits that my phone can give me. But that can at times drain the body. We can have an unhealthy relationship with that adrenaline rush. And eventually we just get exhausted. And as well as we're putting energy in places that don't necessarily need our energy. I don't think my Facebook profile needs as much time as I spend on it. But when I see that little one come up beside my Facebook tab, I have to jump onto it. So I think our awareness around where time is being spent, but also its effect on our body, is, I think, the number one health issue of our current society that's happening right now. Yes,
this whole internet and social media is such a massive change from what human beings evolved with. Like it's so foreign. It's so different now. It's
and that happens so fast. Facebook's been around for 10, 12 years. Like, how much has our life changed with that one addition to our lives?
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Amazing time to be alive. For sure.
Yeah.
It's very cool, but it comes at a cost, unfortunately. And
absolutely,
my goal is to help people find ways to mitigate the problems that are out there. So yeah, so great.
Because we can come into a better relationship with it once we have some awareness of what's going on.
So how do you do that with technology? What are some of your methods?
I struggle with this one. I found one summer that I was losing a huge amounts of time to staring at social media profiles. So one of the things that I did that summer, which was 2 summers ago, is I went internet free one day a week. And honestly, that only lasted 1 week. One Sunday. Then I went social media free every Sunday for the rest of the summer. And that was a lot more doable because emails, I still want to see what emails pop in. And that just gave me some awareness. So that way, when it's beautiful and sunny and warm now, when I'm outside and my phone is with me, how much time am I spent reading a book and how much time am I looking to see what's on the new feed? If I'm spending too much time looking at just what people are posting or idly scrolling, then I have that, then it's this awareness, okay, put this away. I can stare at the lake or trees. That would be a better use of my time. So I think I needed to step away from it for even just a day to fully realize how much time it was taking from my day.
Absolutely. I'm thinking this summer I need to just unplug and go camping and leave the phone at home and like just totally go nature on and phone off kind of
yeah,
a thing.
We need a technology detox. We talk about liver detoxes. What about that technology detox?
Exactly.
It's necessary, I think, for a lot of us.
So I'd like to ask you something that's close to me right now. I have a couple family members that currently have cancer. And I know that one of your specialties is integrated cancer care. So I'm wondering if you could explain what that is.
It's a really interesting practice. I spent a few years working directly in an office that was dedicated to integrative cancer care. And what it does is it marries conventional medicine with alternative medicine. It was a science-based approach. We worked under medical doctors, but these were medical doctors that were also trained in functional medicine, which is a similar practice of naturopathic medicine. So they can straddle both sides. And what we gave was advice and an approach that people who are living with cancer, either with a new diagnosis or post-treatment, wherever they're at, and ways that they can heal from the treatment that they were under or reduce the risk of a recurrence. And it was things that are really well proven, things like the importance of vitamin D levels being at an adequate amount, the research that shows community and support that can make a big difference, relaxation, exercise, sunshine, and a healthy diet. And that's what we were looking at. And these were simple techniques that people can do for themselves at home. And what I loved about it is not only was I working with amazing people, both other practitioners, but also the members that were at our center. It was also they got back some individuality. They got back some control over the situation. If they could eat a little bit better and meditate a little bit, and all of that was scientifically proven to help their body heal. It was a really wonderful time, and I've continued that with my practice, just not to the same concentration.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like especially someone that's going through like chemotherapy or radiation. Like there's so much extra stress is going to be placed on the body, and looking at like supplementation and proper diet to help the body, help the immune system deal with all that extra toxicity and the radiation that they're getting, as
well as the gut aspects of radiation. Having radiation anywhere in your body damages your small intestine, where all of your food and nutrients are absorbed. So you can get radiation on your foot, and it will damage your small intestine, or at least it's presumed it will. So we just assume all radiation on the body can do this. Some chemotherapies can do the same thing. Good news is totally fixable. We just have to fix it. And I would work with people who had radiation 10 years ago and had mild digestive symptoms since. And all we have to do is go through a gut healing protocol, which isn't overly difficult. And that can give them back that absorbency of their nutrients that they've been lacking since that time.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I remember one time I was actually on the beach, and I was talking to a gentleman, and his daughter had cancer, and she was going through chemotherapy at the time. And he was saying that he would give her actually a shake with cannabis in it. Mm. And that made a huge difference for her appetite and her mood. And it just it brought her back, because after she had the chemo, she was just, lifeless and limp, mm-hmm. and had no appetite whatsoever. But he did something very simple like that. Like some people would think that's controversial, giving a child cannabis. But he said it worked really well. Do you have any experience with that? Or
Some, mostly just an experience of people I work with also doing that on the side. And I've seen, like, out of all of the extreme alternative treatments, that is by far the one that I've seen the most effective. I have one former client who was given 1 year to live, and he's now 3.5 years later, and his tumors are shrinking, and it was a really aggressive brain tumor. Another gentleman that I know, he is dealing with quite a lot of pain, and just last night he tried a THC CBD oil combo, and he slept through the night. He didn't need as much morphine. He felt good. He felt happier. So I am seeing enough that it's making me say, wow, this really needs to be something that that I look into, because it could be incredibly effective with what I've yet to see as any detrimental side effects. That's not saying there aren't any. I just haven't seen any yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see even just the mood elevation aspect of it, because I imagine going through cancer, you got to be depressed, right? Like it's got.
You can, yes. It depends on the person. Sometimes it actually lightens their load. It depends. Like it's everybody's reaction to a diagnosis like that is incredibly unique, but depression is a common reaction without question.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you about. I know another area, a specialty for you is inflammation and inflammation management. And I don't think very many people really know much about inflammation. I don't actually. So I'd love to learn, learn something right here. I've heard that inflammation is, a lot of people say it's the root of chronic disease today. But can you kind of give us a background on what it is and how we're getting it in our bodies and what we can do about it?
Inflammation is really cool. And the first thing we need to do is simply change our perspective of it. Inflammation is healing. It is what our immune system does to heal our body, and that's what it exists in our body for. So if you injure your arm or your leg and you can see the pain, like you can see the injury, your body will first heat it up, and so it kills off any bacteria or viruses. It'll increase swelling, so there's more circulation, and we bring white blood cells there. This is all a really important healing system. That is acute inflammation. What the problem with inflammation is when it becomes chronic. So one aspect of it is when we have that injury and our body simply can't get rid of that inflammation, because our body uses food to both create inflammatory factors as well as anti-inflammatory factors. So if our diet is poor in things like omega-3 fats, then we have a harder time getting rid of the inflammation when it's no longer used. And our diet plays a big role in that. The other aspect that's incredibly interesting when it comes to inflammation and this immune system reaction is how our gut bacteria regulates it. So these foreign bodies that live in our gut, they are the regulators of our immune system. It's our bacteria that tells our immune system, react to this, don't react to that. And what's been found is low levels of bacteria in the gut relates to an overstimulated immune system. And that can relate to chronic inflammation, because an overstimulated immune system sends out inflammation throughout the body because it just can't regulate itself. The other aspect is that it also is connected to things like allergies, asthma, and autoimmune conditions. Allergies, like seasonal allergies, are brand spanking new to the human race. They're new as of the Industrial Revolution, which is, like, in the grand scheme of things, relatively new to the human race. When we were in the Industrial Revolution, the upper classes, they had cleaner water, they had sanitation, and they had no longer that input of bacteria from animals and from poor sewage and all of that. Their immune system reacted by developing seasonal allergies. Their immune system was slightly overstimulated and started reacting to pollen and dust. It was so unique to only the upper classes that it became posh to sneeze. So if you walked around with hay fever every spring, you were the posh ones. You were the ones who were living in a class where you could have hay fever. Today, of course, we all have it because we all live this clean life. But it really shows how connected it is to our clean life when the only part of society that was living a clean life were the first ones to develop it.
Wow, that's interesting. I'd never heard that before.
There's so many interesting connections with inflammation. We used to always just think it was bad. Then we realized, okay, well, there's always been something good about it, and that our diet plays a role. It really does with the making of the inflammatory and anti-inflammatory factors. But what's only been coming out in the last few years is how our gut bacteria and its role is fundamental. It's a key root aspect of inflammation. So is high blood sugar, that can stimulate inflammation, and there's a few other directions for inflammation. But I believe our gut bacteria is an incredibly key role.
Yeah, I would agree. True as well. We have so much great information coming out on the gut, and it's such an exciting and fascinating area to study. It's yeah,
and it's emerging too. Every year we learn something new, and it's always really interesting. I find, at least, I love gut bacteria stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The whole fecal transplant, that kind of a thing.
Yes.
First time I heard it, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like a fake news story or something. But no, it turns out it's the real deal.
Yeah, and those who want one, it's really hard to get unless you have a infection of C. difficile. It's almost impossible to get. And I've had one client who's given himself one.
Oh, yeah.
And another one who found a place in the US, and she found a donor. She just had to put it all together. When you need it, you're usually in a desperate situation, because a fecal transplant is what it sounds like. You don't go there unless you really need it.
Yeah. So for our guests, just to let them know what a fecal transplant is, I don't know, could you explain it?
It is literally transplanting the fecal matter and all of the bacteria from one host to another. And it's done usually in a clinical environment. And so therefore there's a cleanness of it, but it can immediately change the immune system, and people with things like Crohn's and colitis can go into immediate or very quick remission. There is a question of whether or not it can also help with mental health issues like depression and anxiety, possibly autism. There is, and then any other kind of gut bacterial imbalance. Of course, it heals quite quickly. It's the question of it is whether or not we can transfer viruses. So that's one of the reasons why it's limited to only one condition, which is C. difficile. And C. difficile is a bacterial overgrowth in the gut that can be deadly and almost impossible to treat with antibiotics, or frequently impossible to treat. So therefore, the Health Canada has allowed that one place for a fecal transplant, but it can be effective in other ways. We just need to study it more. Yes.
Actually, I have a family member right now that's in the hospital with a C. diff infection. And she got it in the hospital. I should say they gave it to her, certainly not on purpose. But yeah, they were talking about doing a fecal transplant, but they're having trouble getting or doing it because I don't know, it seems to be so highly regulated that I'm not sure why it's so difficult to do, but it's not easy.
Yeah, well, and they're wondering, they don't know if like the transmission of viruses like HIV, HPV, any of those big guys might be like you might be able to transmit them with a fecal transplant. So that's one of the reasons for all the regulations. But I also think there are other ones playing out as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
Possibly political ones.
Could very well be. Seems to get in the way of things for sure. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to ask you kind of a personal question. I have psoriasis, and I have it in my scalp, and I have it very much under control, but it's not completely gone. And I went to the doctor, and they said it's a genetic issue, and there's no cure, and here's some corticosteroids, and off you go. Mm-hmm. And they do help treat the symptoms, but they're not a cure. And I learned not that long ago that there may be a link between digestive health and if you have a leaky gut, then you have particles of food that cross the gut barrier and get into your system, and then your immune system basically goes haywire and causes inflammation, and it starts showing up in the body. So have you heard of that before? Does that
Absolutely, yeah. It's in naturopathic medicine and alternative medicine, that is a absolute theory that we live off of. It's also testable. You can test for antibodies that your immune system creates to fight because when that it's undigested protein that gets through the leakiness in the gut, that looks just like a virus or a bacteria. When it's fully digested, it just gets digested and used and absorbed through the liver. But when undigested protein gets through, your body makes an antibody to fight it. And it's this constant fighting of, say, wheat protein that your body thinks is a virus causes this an overwhelmed immune system that's usually overregulated, and it's overstimulated, like we were talking in inflammation earlier. And you can do what's called IgG blood food allergy testing, and they can test for antibodies connected with that. When it comes to eczema and psoriasis, both frequently allergic skin conditions, that's a really good test, because you usually will have a really strange one thrown in there. Like one of my clients with eczema had a sensitivity to honey, and we never would have found that in an elimination diet. The other part with psoriasis is the steroids push down your immune system. So it does treat it. So anything that can balance out your immune system. So really paying attention to the gut and the gut bacteria, bringing in things like medicinal mushrooms that can help regulate the immune system. And then with psoriasis in particular, vitamin D testing and making sure your vitamin D levels at an adequate level is really highly connected to psoriasis.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I found, like personally, I cut out wheat and I noticed a huge difference in the psoriasis. Mm-hmm. It essentially went away. Like when I was totally strict with the wheat being gone, it essentially went away. But to be honest, to this day, I still have the odd wheat. And so I do have a little bit left, but
and that's your choice. That's wonderful that you're able to find it so easily. And then whenever I help somebody find either a food allergy or a food connection, it's their choice. I have a dairy sensitivity. There's nobody who's going to tell me I can't have dairy. I just know exactly what will happen. It hits my lungs. It gives me asthma. I will get eczema if I'm also under a lot of stress. Those two have to come together for me to get eczema. And I just know what the repercussions are. So I choose to have dairy, and I choose to have the repercussions. And that's the same thing for you. You know wheat can reduce it. That being said, it's your life. And if you have some psoriasis, then that's how you have it.
Mm. It's all up to us, and it really comes down to our daily choices, right? We choose every morning. We get up and we have a choice to do this or do that, and that's really in the end what results in our state of health. And
I find that using the word choice over judgment. So if it's like if I said to myself I shouldn't have dairy becomes a lot more powerful, because now I can't have it. This is now a judgment against it. But instead, I'd rather look at it and say I could have dairy. When I have dairy, I feel this way. What do I want to do? And it becomes a choice. And therefore, it's not powerful at all, because anytime I really want it, I can have it. And that's what I like to do with my clients, is help them learn what their body's symptoms are saying, what's going on, what the connections are, and then also learning how to be able to balance that without judgment, without that diet mentality of this is good and this is bad. Because I see a lot of people who know what their food allergies are, but just out of that weight of I can't, they keep eating them. But if it's just a choice, it becomes a lot easier to go without.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you about, I noticed on your website that you talk about pH balance in the body. And I don't know much about that. So I'm wondering if you could just give me an idea of the importance and what that's all about.
So the acid-alkaline balance is one of the many ways to look at your diet, and it's based under the idea that our blood needs to be at this very, very narrow pH between 7.35 and 7.45. And to keep our blood at this pH, it needs to regulate all of the acids and bases that are coming into our body. So there's this range of 0 being the most acidic and 14 being the most alkaline, and 7 is neutral. And all foods and many aspects of our life can fall under that scale. Oxygen is alkalizing, carbon dioxide is acid forming. And as a general statement, we in North America, we have a bigger input of acid forming foods. And what this means is foods after they've been digested, the ash that's left over, whatever, like the post metabolism aspects of that food is whether or not it's an acid or an alkaline base. Lemon is very, very acidic when you eat it, but very alkaline to the body. So doesn't necessarily make sense when you're looking at the food as it is. In general, animal protein and fats are broken into amino acids and fatty acids, and therefore on the acid side. And then fruits and vegetables, anything with lots of minerals, are on the alkaline side. So to balance that out, we simply want to have about 2/3 to 3/4 of our diet being alkalizing, and 1/3 to 1/4 of our diet being acid forming. And that it can create a really lovely balance. So our body doesn't have to work so hard to keep our blood at this pH. There is an idea, and this is only mildly tested, that our urine pH reflects what our body is trying to do to keep our blood at this pH. So if your urine is very acidic, then it could mean that you're excreting acids because you have too much of them. And if your urine is alkaline, then that means you're nicely balanced. And there is an extreme version of this, and this is frequently brought up when and websites talking about natural treatments for cancer, and they use incredibly incorrect information that talks about your blood must be alkaline. If you're sick, that means your blood is acidic, and you need your urine pH at this extremely high level. And that I've seen a lot of people, they come to me and say, I didn't know this. I can cure myself of cancer simply by having an alkaline urine pH. And the truth is that's impossible. And the stress of that alone is really hard on the body. And it's actually hard on the body to have a very, very high urine pH. That the other incorrect piece of information is that the blood can ever be acidic. And if the blood is acidic, the body won't let that happen. And for the blood to be acidic, you are generally in the zone that you're no longer alive anymore. So that doesn't happen. Your body will keep you in that alkaline state. So the moment I see a website or an article and they start talking about acidic or alkaline blood, I just it makes me so angry because it's physiologically impossible. But generally, as a very generalized healthy diet, the acid alkaline balance is a nice way of getting there because it's full of fruits and vegetables and deep breathing and relaxation, and then it still has important foods like amino acids, protein, or fatty acids, fats. And it's about finding that balance. And I find the more alkaline I am, when my urine pH is around neutral, that's in a good spot, then I feel better. And so I do it because I feel better doing that. And I encourage anybody interested in it to simply experiment with themselves and see how they feel.
Mm-hmm. What type of diet do you follow? I'm just curious. And what do you recommend for other people as well?
I eat the way my body would like, and I recommend people also do that. And I teach how to find this out. So I eat the foods, I eat generally in season. My body likes, and through experimentation, I figured this out, a lot of grains and root vegetables. I eat more starch than what is in style right now because food is fashionable. So I do not eat a fashionable diet. I eat lots and lots of fat, ridiculous amounts of fat,
really?
And my skin gets really dry if I don't. I can go through half a pound of butter myself in a week, plus I have 5 other fats that I'm having about at the same level. So it's ridiculous how much fat I use. And I would never recommend that kind of diet to other people. For other people, it might make them feel tired and heavy. For me, it makes me feel grounded and stable. It all depends on your own constitution. And so what I recommend for my clients is to do some experimentation, eat food and see how you feel without judgment. And it's how are you feeling today after lunch? Do you have energy? Are you tired? Are you thinking well, or are you craving something? What's going on? And just paying attention to that creates shifts on their own. And then my clients come to me and say, hey, I feel so good when I have protein for breakfast. I said, that's fantastic. What else did you find out? And usually just through that kind of conversation, we find a way of eating that's not a black or white, on or off diet kind of mentality. It is a lifelong, easy to do, balanced way of eating. And that's the only kind of diet I recommend.
Yeah, I'm totally on the same page because there's so many different diet fads out there, and you're right. It is what's in vogue at the moment, and there's so many different,
documentaries. And one thing that kind of gets my goat a bit is when like some people say, oh, the only way to go is raw vegan, and that's for everyone, all 7 billion is on the planet. And I just think, that's just not the way it is. We're individuals. We're all slightly different. And I understand people want a simple solution, right? That's the human nature. But the truth is that we have to figure it out for ourselves. And,
Yes.
And it's, we have to taste and test and see how it makes us feel. And if we need to get help from, someone like you or just figure out our own, but you do have to take the time, experiment, and find out what works for your own body.
And be willing to adjust when things change. A lot of women, after they've had a baby, what they felt good on before is different now. Hormonal changes can do that. Life, different times of your life, things change. Different seasons, things change. So what worked at one point may not work now. So if you're struggling with what you're eating and thinking, why isn't it feeling as good as it did before? It probably just needs some adjustment. And fads sell books. They don't necessarily help people eat better. If anything, they can cause more confusion. And the only reason that I have a practice is out of that confusion. And if I can reduce it as much as I can, I am happy.
Yeah. You're getting it done. That's important. I'm curious about, you said you eat a fair amount of grains, because grains are kind of out of vogue right now.
I know. They're totally out of style.
Can you tell me what you eat?
And I'm going to tell you all about the crazy things that I eat that are so out of style. I eat wheat. I get bread in a sourdough form, which is a really easy to digest version of gluten. And I feel really good when I eat it. When I eat even sprouted grain bread, which is also another good option for a lot of people, I don't feel as good as I do when I have sourdough. So I buy a properly done sourdough bread and I have it every day. Every single day, you'll see me eating bread. I have quinoa. I also eat white rice. And I eat white rice because it's fast and I'm not willing to wait 45 minutes, but also because I always questioned our use in North America of brown rice, and it is a whole grain. I'm a holistic nutritionist. I'm all about the whole grains, but it didn't make sense to me that cultures who traditionally have eaten rice never eat brown rice. They always eat white. And so I dove into it a little bit more, and it's not a conclusive answer. But there is a question of whether or not the fiber in brown rice may block the nutrients that it contains. So there's no question that brown rice contains more nutrients than white rice, but the fiber may block that absorption. So there is a school of thought that believes that white rice you can absorb more nutrients from it. What I do is I use it as a condiment in my meals, not as a base. So I do not make enough rice to cover a plate to add a little pile of vegetables in the middle. I eat a lot of vegetables, and to soak up this nice fatty sauce that I add on it, because I use a lot of oil, I add, it's about a quarter cup of dry rice is what I use for a dinner. And for my body, that is heaven. A stir fry with about 2 tablespoons of oil added afterwards is really a lot of oil I use, plus good quality oils, plus other flavorings, and a quarter cup of dry rice cooked. That, for me, my body is the perfect dinner, and I have it probably 3 or 4 times a week. And because I eat a lot of vegetables, I also have oatmeal and quinoa and white rice and wheat, and I eat all of those things that are totally out of style right now.
All right. Well, good to know. Absolutely.
But if I forced that diet on you, you wouldn't feel well because it's too much bread and too much wheat, and it probably is too much oil for your body. And that's like the idea that everybody should be a raw food vegan. Yeah, that might work for you, but I know that won't work for me. My diet won't work for somebody else either. That's how individual it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, we need to figure it out for ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we're coming close to the end of our time here. And I wanted to ask you, what is the good news about achieving excellent health in our modern world?
Oh, there's a few really big pieces of good news. One is that you simply can feel well. But the most important thing is that when you feel well, when you've taken care of yourself, you then can help other people. That might be your family. It might be your children. It could be your coworkers. It could be a friend that's in need. And we need that more than any other time of life. This is the moment that we need to reach out more than ever. But if we're tired and exhausted and overwhelmed and foggy and barely making it through our day, we can't reach out with those connections. And that's leading to the society where all of our connections are happening on Facebook and all of our conversations are happening in these little quick emails. We don't have the time or energy to sit down with a friend and say, how are you doing right now? And the more we can do that, the better our society will be, because that's where we're wired for community. We're wired for connection, and we don't get that unless we're feeling good.
Absolutely. That's something that we seem to have lost. We have this online community now, but we've lost the real personal, tactile community in our lives. And I'm feeling that myself right now because we have a young baby in the house, and, you know, people used to live in villages and you'd have lots of other people around helping with childcare, but I feel feeling pretty isolated and stressed because of it. And,
absolutely. It's it's a much harder time to have a young baby due to that lack of community.
Indeed. So what is the best way to find your work?
Well, you can go to my website, lisakilgour.com, and I have a webinar series that I launched this year. And every month I do a free webinar on a different topic. And all you have to do is sign up for my newsletter, and you get the first, you have the ability to register first for all of those webinars. And then you get a playback if you miss it. There's a 48-hour playback. So that's the best way to kind of reach me and learn a bit more of what I do. I also have a whole bunch of articles if you'd rather just sit and read. And about my website, lisakilgour.com, and my newsletter is where everything new comes out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Tings for having me on, Scott. This was a great conversation. It's been fun.
You are awesome. You got so much knowledge. It's like, I'm going to listen to this again just to absorb all the knowledge. All right. Well, have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.
We have reached the end of this episode. I hope you have found a piece of information you can use to improve your life or the life of your loved ones with. If you feel that I've helped you in some way, I ask that you help me in return. Liking, rating, reviewing, sharing, and or subscribing all help me rise in the search engine rankings so I can reach and help even more people. Subscribing being the most important one. Thanks in advance. As always, I will continue to bring you the health stuff you need to know.